Back in March of this present year, I rough turned this bowl out of oak. Some of you guys may remember there is a video up in my channel. I'll put a link in the description to that if you're curious to see how I rough turned it. Since then, it has been sitting on a shelf and it is cracked to death on the bottom. Now, I don't see any of these cracks on the inside, so I don't think they go all the way through, but I have some really large ones, 4 in fact, right near the tenon. Now, as for this bowl, if I just finish turning it like regular, I know those cracks will show on the bottom, but I have a really good way of hiding them. When I went to the Ohio Valley Wood Turning Symposium, I saw a really great demonstration on how to texture the outside of a bowl with milk paint and paper. Now, I'm going to try that on this today, but my real intention for doing this is just to hide these cracks. So, let's go ahead and get started. Ta-da! First thing we need to do to this bowl is to true up that tenon and also to clean up the outside. And to do that, I'm going to be using a jam chuck. Now the jam chuck goes into your chuck, and I have just a piece of this squishy foam stuff. I still don't know what this is called, but it goes on the bottoms of drawers, and it also makes fantastic material for jam chucking. So this goes on the jam chuck here. I still have my center mark from when I rough turned this, and I'll just go ahead and bring up pressure from the tailstock. And I'll go ahead and turn my speed down as slow as it will go. I'll turn on the lathe, and I'll slowly turn up my speed, and I'll stop when the lathe starts to shake a little bit. Okay, I'm currently at 920 RPM, and the lathe isn't shaking at all. It's really solid, but I'm going to stop here because I don't really think I need to go any faster than this. Okay, now this is pretty much all cleaned up, and yes, those cracks are still right there and there. The other two have kind of disappeared, but the 2 big ones are still in there. Something very important to note about the shape of this bowl, it's mainly right here towards the foot. I put in just a very subtle ogee in there, just where it kind of dips in and flares out at the foot. And you'll see why later while we're paper macheing the outside of this thing. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and clean up that tenon. Sanding the outside because it's just going to get covered up anyways, but I'm going to go ahead and take this out of my chuck now. So now I'll go ahead and flip this around and install this into my chuck now, and I'll go ahead and clean up the rim and the inside. Doing on wall thickness. Okay, it's nice and even all the way around. Okay, now I'll take this out of my chuck, and now's the fun part. Alright, so now it's time to texture the outside of this bowl. And what I'm going to be using is a brown paper bag. He recommends this to start out with, just to see how it works. So that's what I'm going to be going with. Each of these strips has been really just crumbled up and trying to get a lot of wrinkles in the paper, because that will be what our texture looks like once it's on the bowl. And as you can see here, I've done a lot of strips, so I think I'm set. So if you haven't already figured it out, this is just like paper mache. I have a little bit of water here. I don't really know how much, but it's going to be a 50-50 mixture of water to wood glue. And I marked on this container here how much water I put in. So now I'll go ahead and add the wood glue. Okay, so now I'll pour my wood glue into my water. Just go ahead and stir that up. Just a note, wear rubber gloves, cover up your workbench. This is a little bit messy here. Okay, so now all of our paper, some of it at least, is going to get thrown in here to soak for a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to start at the top here, just near that OG. I'm going to stop when I get at the foot there. I'm just going to bring it up just past the foot just a little bit. You just kind of make sure it's nice and flat on there. Remember which direction you're working in. I'm working clockwise. I'm just going to overlap each one by maybe about 1/2 inch. Okay, so then I'll start a new row. Just kind of spun off of the other one. Now this last row is kind of important because you want to try to get it as flush as you can with the rim of the bowl. Now earlier I mentioned how I carved the foot of this bowl so it's at a slight OG kind of profile where it kind of dips in and flares out towards the foot. And that's because if you round it all the way over, the strips kind of want to fold up and they don't bend right, and it's really hard to get them to completely compress down to the surface of the bowl. But if you put that little bit of an OG in there, then they won't do that. So that was the reason for that. Alright, I'll go ahead and let this cure up and we'll see how it looks. Alright, so now that the paper mache is nice and dry, nice and hard, I'm going to go ahead and paint it. I'm going to use a nice maroon color. I think it will complement everything nicely. And I am going to experiment using acrylic craft paints rather than milk paint. So I'm just going to go ahead and squirt some over here and go ahead and start painting. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and let this sit overnight because it is the end of the day and it's not like I'm going to come out here in a couple hours in the middle of the night. And also because I want to make sure this is completely cured up before I touch it with sandpaper. Alright, so here's what the bowl looks like after the paint is finished drying. And if you notice, the paper here is kind of extending past the rim of the bowl in a few places. And it is very tempting to carve it off on the lathe, but if you get a small catch on this, which is very easy on this paper, it'll rip the whole paper right off the bowl. So take a razor blade and just carefully start trimming it off there. It's not really hard with a razor blade. It comes right off. And I'm also going to cut off the excess on the foot as well. Now as you can see here, I actually did fill in the couple of cracks that were still left behind in the bottom of the bowl. I did this with finely ground coffee grounds and thin CA glue to set them into the crack. After that, I took my bowl gouge and I just cleaned up the inside a little bit, and I also power sanded the inside from 150 grit all the way up to 800. This is the part that's really going to add a lot of cool looking texture to the outside of the bowl. And that is sanding off all of the high spots and all the ridges and wrinkles in the paper on the outside. Now, I don't want to sand all the way through into the wood. I just want to barely touch it with the sandpaper just to go through the paint and into the paper bag, and that'll give it this really cool look. So I'm going to turn my speed down kind of low because this is warped and I want my hand to be able to touch all the surfaces on this as it comes around without bouncing off. So my speed will be at around 300 or 400 RPMs. And I'm going to play around with the 320 grit first and see how that works. Alright, you can see the really cool effect that we're getting from that, and I'm just going to keep on going until I get the look that I like. I treated the brown paper bag like wood while I was sanding, so after that 320 grit I proceeded with 400 and 600. Alright, I'm pretty happy with this look right here. It feels good, it looks good, the rim is kind of nice and clean. I'm kind of surprised at that. So, I think I'm good. Alright, now we'll go ahead and give this a couple coats of spray lacquer. And that's it. I think this bowl came out really well. I love the way the paper texturing looks and feels. Using this method to texture the outside of the bowl will take an otherwise ordinary piece and give it a really neat effect. I definitely plan on doing this to more pieces in the future. I'd really love to see how this would look just as a band around the rim of a bowl or a platter, or maybe just slowly crawling up the side of the bowl and gradually tapering off. I'm also going to play around with using different types of papers to see what other kind of textures I can achieve. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and check back next Friday for a new wood turning video. Thank you, and have a great day.